In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can use an AI agent inside BitFlows to take some information from a form, look at the answers we've given to it, and then make decisions based upon those answers using knowledge. So let's take a look at how we do that. Now, before we go any further, this video is sponsored by BitFlows, but as always, I'm simply going to demonstrate how you can use these functions. I'm not going to give you any opinion, and you can make a more informed decision for yourself. So let me show you what we've got set up, and let's go step by step through then actually how we create it. So this is the flow that we're going to look at creating. There are two distinct parts to this. There's the trigger and there's the action. Now the action has multiple different parts based upon what answers come from that form. In our example, we've got a very simple form to fill out. We've got your typical email address and so on, but we've got 5 different questions, and based upon how accurately they're answered, different things will happen. The cool thing about using this AI agent is we don't have to get exactly right. We just need to be close enough to mean that we know what we're talking about. So for example, we may put in, who invented the telephone? Well, we could say Graham Bell, for example. So we know it's Alexander Graham Bell, but we just don't know the full name. We're going to put that in. It's close enough. We understand roughly who it is. The same thing goes then, for example, with the element O representing the periodic table. Let's say we're not particularly great at spelling and we misspell the word. It's still close enough to know whether we're right or wrong. This is where the AI agent comes in super handy. It's smart enough to know that we're close enough. We probably got it near enough right, so it will mark us accordingly. So now we see the trigger, we know we're going to use an AI agent. This is going to have multiple different steps. You can see we've got MailerPress, Mail, and Fluent Community. So depending upon whether the answers are correct or not, then different things will happen. So they get subscribed to the mailing list, they'll get tagged in a certain way, they'll have an email sent out to them, they may get added into a specific part of our overall community. This is just a really simple example. You could go way, way further than this, but once you understand how these AI agents work and how you can harness some of the functionality there, you can really go to town on what you want to do after. So now that we've seen what we're going to create, let's go through and create it step by step. Now, I'm not going to cover things like creating forms and so on. You can create those yourself. I'm pretty sure you can create a form, even if you want to use AI to create it. All that matters is we connect things up inside BitFlows. So let's create a new flow. We'll give this a name, and we're going to use a blank template from here. So we're going to start completely from scratch. Click on Create. And that now brings us into the builder. So now what we can do is we can set our trigger. So for this example, I've used Fluent Forms to create the form. So let's come up to the top and search for Fluent, and we'll say Fluent Forms. Then we can see submission inserted. We'll choose that from our list. That's going to look through, see what forms we've got created, and we can choose what form we want to associate with this trigger. So we'll click and drop this down. We're going to say general knowledge quiz, and we'll say that's the one we want. And then we need to listen for a response. Now, this is the same with pretty much any kind of automation tool you want to use. We have to fire that trigger off one time so we can capture the data and we can use that to make sure that everything is connected and working correctly. So all we need to do is say, listen for response, go over to our form, fill in the information here. We'll fill out our answers. I'm just going to pop anything in, doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so I've put in my answers. We'll come down and say submit answers. That form has now been submitted. So if we jump back over into BitFlows, you can see that response has been captured and it shows us underneath the data that's been captured. So we expand these out. You can see there's all the details that I filled out. So question 1 through 5, my name, my email, and so on. So we know we've captured that data. Everything in the first step, the trigger step, is all working perfectly. So now we can move on to what we want to happen after the trigger. So let's close this down. Let's click on the plus. I'm going to search for the AI agent. We'll add that in, and then this is going to come through and say, right, now we've added an agent in, we need to build things out here. So for example, we need to choose the source for the prompt itself, if we want to use system prompts, etc., etc. So this might look a little bit overwhelming to start off with, but it's not actually that complex. So let me show you how we do all of this. So I've already created the starting prompt. And as you can see, it breaks down and tells the AI agent effectively what we are, what we're looking for, the answers to our questions, and so on. So as you can see, I'm a class teacher taking a general knowledge exam for students. In the exam, they answer 5 questions. If they give the right answer, they'll get 1 point. The students with more than 3 points, add them to MailerPress contact list, and etc, etc, etc. So we've gone through and told it what we want it to do. We've also given it the correct answers and told it that it only needs to be relatively close to those correct answers. It doesn't have to be word perfect or spelled exactly correctly. Then we've also got to do one really important thing here. We've got to marry up the answers that have been provided and the information from our form, which is our trigger, to our prompt. That's how it's going to know what's been submitted in the form and how it needs to compare them. So to do that, you can see I've got these kind of placeholders, answer 1, and so on and so forth. So if we click inside here where we've got the answers and click inside there, you'll see this pops up this new window. Now what this does is this allows us to grab the data we've caught inside our trigger form. And as you can see, there's our student name, first name, last name, email, the answers we provided for each of the questions. And each piece of this data can be inserted into our prompt. So for example, we obviously want the first answer. So we'll click, you can see answer 1, question 1. And we're going to click and we're going to repeat this for all of them. We're also going to do the same thing then underneath for the first name, last name, and email. So we've captured that data so we can then use that in the different actions we want to take place after it's actually looked at the answers and come back with what is right and wrong. So let me just add those in the same process I've just shown you now. After a couple of seconds, you can see that's exactly what we've got now. So these placeholders are basically the information we've grabbed from our form. So that's the first and most important part taken care of. We've connected the two up. We're passing the data from our form into our prompt for our AI agent. So now we've got the prompt in place and we've got everything set up for our AI agent from this side of things. We also need to go through and say what chat model we want to use, whether we want to use memory and any other tools we want to connect it to. So what we need to do is click on the plus here. This will open up the different models that are supported. We're going to use the OpenAI chat model, select that from our list and choose the chat model. Now I've already created a connection to ChatGPT using my API key. You can see there's add a connection, so you can add a new one. In our example, I've already got one connected, so we'll choose that from our list. I can then choose what model I want to use. So for this example, let's use the latest Chat 5.4. So we've got our AI model now connected up. We can now create a memory if we want to. And if you use a memory, you can actually grab the data that's stored inside the memory and use that as other parts of the whole process inside your automation sequence. So let's click on the memory option. And for this example, we're going to choose the simple memory and simple memory one more time. So we can enter the key inside here. And the key is basically what information do we want it to store for us. If we click inside here, that same window pops up with all the same data. So now we can say we want to grab their name, their email, and their answer to all the questions. And you can see that now stores that inside there, and now that will be stored inside the memory. And if we want to use that, we can reference that data. It's stored in this process now inside our AI memory. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we can come back out of this and let's go and test things out. So we're going to click on our agent. We're going to come down and say test run. As you can see, test run successfully. Let's scroll down and we can see there's our response, our output. So our student score was 4 out of 5. It tells us what answers were correct, partially correct, or right enough. So you can see it's gone through and it said, okay, you were close enough with your answer, but it wasn't perfect, but it's the right answer basically. So we've got a 4 out of 5 star kind of answers there. So that's pretty cool. So there's the first 2 parts of it done. So what are we going to do now? Well, we know that based upon whether they're correct or incorrect, we want different actions to take place. We also want a generic action that just kind of says, well, send them an email to say thank you for actually filling the form out. So let's create those actions now. Let's close this down. You can see the tools is basically what we want to do afterwards, what kind of tools we want to use as part of this whole process. We can click on here and let's come over and we're going to choose mail and we'll just grab the normal standard built-in mail function and say send mail. Okay, so let's pop in a description here and say basically we're going to send them an email for anyone that filled out the form, provide feedback. The from email, we'll just pop in a test one here. Doesn't really matter, it's just an example. From name, say from us. Who are we going to send it to? Well, obviously we need to grab some data from that form, the variables that are being passed over. So we can click inside here and we can say we want to send it to this email address, job done. CCs, BCs, replies, etc., etc. can all be done here. The subject, we pop in your quiz performance results. Then we've got the body of the email, which is basically just the content you want to send over. And again, you can see we can reference any of the information we've got passed over from our form. So we can give them feedback based upon exactly what they typed in. So let's do something like, hey, and we're going to pop in their first name. Here's the results of your quiz. We'll pop in Question 1, we'll pop the answer in. Q2, pop the answer in, and continue on doing the same thing. Again, no point in me showing you step by step. If you want to select media from the library, you can do, and you want to say this is in HTML format, you say yes, you want to, and that's our email configured. So now whenever anybody fills this in, the data will be passed over to our AI agent. It'll be checked to see how accurate it is. An email will automatically be sent out with the relevant information from this submission. So we're pretty much halfway through. So let's close this down. So now we want to move on to the slightly more complex things. We want to connect this up to some of the tools we've got integrated into our site. In this case, we want MailerPress, so we can add them to a mailing list, and we also want to add them into the relevant part of our overall community. So let's start off with a mailing list first of all. Let's click plus again on our tools, come over, and we're going to search for MailerPress and click to add one in. See, we've got a bunch of different options inside here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say create or update a contact. We'll pop a description in. So the contact email, so like we've done before, click inside, choose their email address, grab their first name, grab their second name, set their subscription status, so we'll say they're subscribed in this example. Then we've got a list inside here called default list, and I've created some tags, and we're going to say this is success. So now once we fill that out, we've now said for the relevant users based upon their score, they may be added into this list. That stage is done. So we'll close that down. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Let's click one more time. And this time we're going to search for community. There's our Fluent Community. And we say we're going to add user to a specific course. So we'll say add user to course, give us a description. So we now need to grab their user ID. To do that, we're going to come over to the system tab inside here because obviously this data isn't passed via the form. And as you can see, user ID. Choose that. That's added that user ID for us. Next up, our course ID. So we can click on here. And now I just need to give the ID for the course that we want to give them access to as part of Fluent Community. In this example, the course ID is 5. We can't use dynamic data here from this because that data isn't being passed over. We're not doing anything inside the community itself to grab that data. So we just need to manually grab that information. So once that's been done, we're going to make sure that everything is completed. Let's now click to just tidy everything up here. So we're going to click the little fit view option and we'll click the magic option to tidy it all up. So we've got a nice, neat visual representation of what's going on. So now we've got everything set up. We've got everything laid out nice and neat and tidy. We need to test this flow to make sure that everything works. Now, obviously, there's a couple of ways we could approach this. We could go back and fill the form out again and go through that whole process. But conveniently, if we click on this submission inserted, you'll see that the data we put in there originally from the first time we tested this out is all still in there. So we don't need to go through this again. So we'll use that data. So let's close this down and let's say test the flow once. Say use existing data, and that will now go through and test that flow out for us. As you can see, it pops up and tells us the flow is executing in the background. Please check the logs for more details. So let's close this little dialog down, click on the logs. You can see this is currently processing. So we open the details up. You can see the Fluent form, that was success. The AI agent was successful. So we open this up. We can see all the values and everything that's come back from it, including the response. As you can see, it tells us the student has been added to the MailerPress contact list. And as you can see, it's carrying on going through anything else on here. So we can minimize this and it'll go through that entire process and make sure that everything is set up and working correctly. So we jump over and take a look inside MailerPress. You can see there's our new user added into success tag, added into our list, subscribed, etc., etc. So all of that side of things has been done. So while this is a very simple example, it does demonstrate how you can use these AI agents. You can instruct them on what you want to do, and you can have some flexibility in there to have some kind of sense of judgment going on, as opposed to everything being specific arbitrary values where everything has to be matched perfectly, spelling, case, etc., etc. This gives you a lot more flexibility, and you can easily expand something like this way beyond what I've covered in this video. But hopefully this has sort of whet your appetite for how you could use AI agents inside a tool like BitFlows. As always, all applicable links are in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.